In 2014, a Russian musical director living and working in Moscow was pondering his retirement. He hit upon the idea of rewarding himself for his successful career and musical achievements. His plan was to undertake one last project, to make a studio recording of himself performing one of his favorite pieces of music. To do this, Leonid Vorobyev invited some fellow musicians, many of whom he had worked with during his career as one of Russia's most sought-after popular music arrangers, to collaborate and play alongside him on the recording. But this was not to be a passage from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, or even Korsakov's Flight of the Bumblebee. It was, somewhat surprisingly, a song written by trombonist James Pankow in 1975 and performed by America's top supergroup, Chicago.
Wish I knew what was going wrong. Seems so very long since we left together. It's no good to be all alone. When you've heard of
Vorobyev and his friends recorded the piece, Brand New Love Affair, in Vladimir Osinski's top recording facility in Moscow. No charts or scores existed for the song, which meant that Vorobyev had to painstakingly transcribe the music by ear, and then score and arrange the individual parts. It's a song written in two parts, with the first half placing the listener in a world of ethereal romanticism and cozy nights in, with lush strings and Mellow Road's piano chords underpinning Vorobyev's crystal-clear vocals. But suddenly, as we wallow in a nostalgic world of late-night dinner jazz, we're instantly woken up, and the dream is shattered. Vasily Akimov's hard rock vocals, backed by Sergei Kasharin's infectious wah-wah, Igor Javad-Zade's solid drums, and the all-important horn section, turn this song into a driving jazz rock anthem, leaving the listener, well, shattered. This outstanding recording session was captured on camera, and the result was a YouTube video that quickly went viral. The enthusiasm from Vorobyev's musical buddies was such that almost immediately they were saying, "How about we do some more?"
Every musician said, my fellows said, maybe one more. And after that, we cannot stop. We cannot stop because our fans don't let us stop it.
Thanks to YouTube and social media, Leonid and Friends, as the band became known, soon notched up thousands of fans globally, no more so than in the United States. The band quickly became an internet phenomenon, attracting a growing army of over 10,000 Facebook followers, millions of YouTube hits, and an ever-growing repertoire of music.
This band from Russia, I believe, has hacked our music. Scandalous? No. Investigation needed? Probably not. Leonid and Friends is the name of this outfit, and they are all over YouTube getting hundreds of thousands of views and absolutely killing it.
The best of Chicago Transit Authority, the best songs from your life. The 2019 Autumn Tour is on.
This music has transcended time. It has no demographic. People are still coming into the audience, young people. It strikes a chord in them. And people in the audience are 15 to 75, and they're all getting this on their level, and they're celebrating this with us.
So, from a musical perspective, just how did the idea of incorporating horns as an integral part of rock music come about?
You know, really, the whole idea of having the three horns in a rock band, I have to give that credit to Walter Parazaider.
There was an idea. James Brown was already happening, and other R&B type groups, but I wanted to put together a rock and roll band with horns. The horns were truly an integral part of the band and all of the music, that the horns would be woven into the structure of all the songs, which hadn't been done, because basically going to be a rock and roll band with horns, although they called us everything from a jazz rock group. I'd rather call us a romantic acid rock group.
What gave us inspiration in the very beginning was, yes, you know, the Memphis soul bands, you know, some of the smaller jazz quintets and quartets around Chicago in the 60s. All of those things really inspired us to try to have a bigger sound than a normal rock band. Because we're an abnormal rock band, for sure.
As I was walking down the street one day,
there would have been no Blood, Sweat and Tears without the Beatles, you know. These guys opened my eyes to the fact that educated musicians could really have a voice in this new music, and that's what Blood, Sweat and Tears was all about.
Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? If so, I can't imagine why.
Well, remember, in that era, the three-piece Power Marshall band was king. You had the Who, Cream, Hendrix, on and on and on. And here comes a band with flutes and Ellington Basie type arrangements and trumpets and, you know, Juilliard graduates playing rock and roll. Are you kidding? That was not done.
And when did you start adding your music into the fray? Was that fairly early on?
Oh, right off the bat, yeah. I had a couple of songs. One of them, Spinning Wheel, I had actually recorded here in Toronto for a company who rejected it. It sounds too jazz.
What goes up must come down. Spinning wheel, got to go round. Talking about your troubles, it's a crying sin. Ride a painted pony, let the spinning wheel spin. You got no money, you got no spinning wheel, all alone. Talking about your troubles.
And Tony and I got together in Yorkville and started discussing ideas of, like, why does rock and roll pop music have to be played by uneducated musicians? You know, let's get some jazz guys together and let's see what these guys do with it. It was more than just that we had horns. You know, Ray Charles had horns. Little Richard had horns.
Yeah.
Fats Domino had horns.
Yeah, but it's the way they played, and the kind of arrangements were a lot thicker.
The arrangements came out of Basie, Ellington, out of the Village Vanguard and the jazz scene in New York, but also the guys who really accomplished musicians in New York. played all kinds of music.
Since that first YouTube video, Leonid and friends have seemingly achieved the impossible.
I don't know how to explain this. It's magic.
Many of Russian musicians have a dream to play for the American audience.
I have a question for you guys from America. Как вы живете в этой удивительно волшебной стране, когда здесь происходят чудеса каждую минуту? How do you live in this magical place, right?
We are happy, we are lucky, because we make it true.
In Moscow, finding horn players who could play rock, jazz, and rhythm and blues was not an easy task. But Vorobyev managed to assemble a group of available musicians who, up until this point, had only been performing sporadically. Not so long ago, musicians from Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, and Tajikistan playing their combined heartfelt tribute to great American rock acts to American audiences would be deemed unlikely. But now, with 2 CDs and 3 US tours under their belt, Leonid and friends have disproved such skepticism over and over again by bringing warmth and friendship and uniting their many fans all over the world and actively seeking opportunities to meet them. By Leonid's own admission, politics has no place in the band's ethos, insisting, as he does, that regardless of their origins and their leaders' agendas, cross-border tensions do not exist between everyday folk who have a common love and respect for the other through music, a philosophy mirrored by many high-profile artists worldwide to this day.
You know, the great thing about my job is that when I go out on stage, I get to bring all of these people together for 3 hours. They might come from different backgrounds, different religions, different sides of the aisle, whatever it is. But my intention is to go out and have everybody forget about all of that, come together and sing our songs with us.
So just how did this story unfold?
Well, during the early 60s, any dreams Vorobyev had of forming a rock band were thwarted by the lack of availability of electric guitars, amplifiers and drums in his homeland. At the same time, popular Western culture was heavily censored in the Soviet Union. Being a fan of the Beatles or the Beach Boys was not easy. So, reviled by the communist authorities as vulgar pollution, Western music was banned, and illicit parties and gatherings of young Soviet hipsters, or Stilyagi, were often raided by vigilantes and broken up.
So this dark cloud of censorship and repression meant that budding young musicians, including Vorobyev, who were keen to emulate the Beatles, had to improvise.
Leonid came back after holidays, he noticed that all his friends were making handmade guitars, you know, handcrafted guitars, electric guitars. Because back back in USSR, you didn't have any electric guitars in the stores that you could buy, so they had to make them.
Using photographs of Western guitars as reference, these enterprising young musicians would make their own instruments by ingeniously cutting and crafting old wooden tabletops into guitar bodies.
If you're lucky, have actual photograph of the Beatles guitar, Beatles guitar, and then you draw it on a table or something. I saw the table myself, my grandma table. We built all guitars at home, or sometimes even in a school shop. We just pretended to build something else.
But the vital electronic components posed an additional problem.
I think it was a Young Technician magazine. Someone shared the idea. So how to build a pick-up out of telephone receiver. So the next day, receiver's gone. All around the country. It was just like that. No, gone.
You notice is that all the phone booths around the city, and this was, back in Siberia, all the phone booths, the telephones were missing a magnetic coil because they took it out and attached it to the guitar to make the guitar work. So no phones were working.
Беседка щелкает подсветочных окон. С гитарами за 7,50 со снятую струной сидели битлами больны и задавали тон всему району пацаны гитарную игрой. А если подключить гитару через усилок, используя для этого переносной транзистор, тогда можно сыграть нечто похожее на рок и бить при этом барабаны из пустых канистр. Эй, парень, не буди гитарой, спящих в хрущевках людей не поймут здесь гитары твоей. Я выпилю себе гитару из доски, установил звукач из трубки телефонной, но одна тяга струн, она распалась на куски, когда играл я соло своей песенки коронной. Эй, парень, не буди гитарой, спящих в хрущевках людей своей песни с припевом. Oh, yeah.
Young Soviet Stilyagi were obsessed with Western culture, particularly jazz, boogie-woogie, and rock and roll.
It was like a fresh air. In Russia, it was amazing power because they had this free spirit.
But the music was inaccessible. It was acquired either by smuggling copies from the West, recording it from Western radio broadcasts, or by creating bootlegged albums.
Well, bootlegging was achieved by using a standard wax disc cutter and etching a copy onto flimsy X-ray film, a material which was plentiful and cheap and readily found in the rubbish bins of local hospitals. The resulting homemade records became known as bone or rib music, due to the transparent images of the human anatomy that could clearly, if rather ghoulishly, be seen on the discs.
So if you wanted to listen to anything other than Soviet propaganda music in 1970s Siberia, the best you could hope for was an illicit copy. So when Leonid Vorobyev got his hands on a pirated copy of Chicago's first album, 3 years after its release, it literally blew him away.
How did a band in Moscow get fascinated with the band Chicago?
Oh, because Chicago blew me away from the first time I heard them in 1972, back in USSR, when I was 17. And 4 years ago, when I reached 60, I decided to make a gift for myself for my birthday.
some point I realized, and I think we all realized, that music is indeed what we're going to be doing pretty much for the rest of our lives.
In 1998, Vorobyev took the brave step of moving himself and his family to Moscow, where he hoped to realize his dreams of making music professionally. He successfully established himself in the entertainment and music business, working in one of the leading recording studios in Moscow, initially as an audio engineer and a session musician, but eventually becoming an arranger, producer, and director. Vorobyev's career has seen him work with some of the biggest names in Russia and international music. And it was his involvement with these artists that allowed him to forge friendships with the many talented musicians he would meet. Not surprisingly, Vorobyev's contact list was full of potential band members. Members of a band that thousands of fans worldwide have now grown to love and admire as Leonid and Friends. The combined musical talents of the Leonid and Friends band members is certainly impressive, with many having graduated from various musical institutions in their homelands. As one might expect, most, if not all of them, have been involved in previous solo or collaborative projects involving other musicians from the rich musical circles in Moscow. A sort of coming together, as it were. Vocalist Vasily Akimov has been successful in several international music competitions. He's seen here with Irina Kozlova, collaborating on the song Mama, which, coincidentally, was written by Leonid and Friends drummer Igor Javad-Zade. In 1989, Akimov became the lead vocalist in the legendary hard rock band Monomag, where his talents were recognized by and won particular praise from former Black Sabbath frontman Ronnie James Dio. One of the first members to be invited into the Leonid and Friends project is singer-guitarist Sergei Kasharin. Kasharin has played guitar since he was a small boy. In fact, reviewers have suggested he was actually born with a guitar in his hand. Sergei is a founder of several musical projects, one of which, Real Bodrit, is a collaboration with former Leonid and Friends bassist Dmitry Maximov.
When you're weary, feeling small.
Ukrainian Stilyagi Ryadno was brought in to Leonid and Friends to cover Peter Cetera's countertenor vocal parts. He often records his parts for Leonid and Friends remotely from his recording studio in Kiev.
I'm on your side. Oh, when times get rough and friendships teach there are things that I still have to learn.
Serge is a producer and multi-instrumentalist, and as such has combined these talents with his far-reaching and versatile vocals as a member of various bands prior to joining Leonid and Friends.
So I don't want to learn to hold you, touch you. Think that you're mine, because there ain't
Despite being little known in Europe and in the United States, Ksenia Buzina is credited as being the first Russian singer to be understood by over 1 billion people. This is because she's a multilingual recording artist whose popularity in China came after her success in the Russian TV version of The Voice. Born in the city of Chita in Siberia, but now a resident of Moscow, this talented economics graduate began singing as a child in various school events and competitions. She earned her first paycheck at the age of 16, singing in restaurants and accompanied by her father. She is a piano virtuoso and has participated in numerous television and festival appearances outside of her homeland.
For this one isn't real. If I cannot hold you close, then how am I to feel? Your horizons are before.
Leonid Vorobyev himself is no stranger to the spotlight, if only to satisfy his own love of the music. But his remarkable talent includes writing, arranging, and performing his own material. And, together with lyricist Yobi Osman, he produced this Eurovision Song Contest contender in 2012.
On the other side of darkness, that's where we embrace. Close my eyes to see your face. Close my eyes to leave this place.
It's hard not to understand why Igor Javad-Zade is recognized as one of Russia's top drummers. Igor is constantly in demand and has vast experience in live performances and session work, collaborating with numerous artists both in Russia and internationally. He regularly hosts drum clinics, teaching and demonstrating his skills and technique across a spectrum of musical genres. In an interview with Russian media, Igor was asked how he became involved with Leonid and Friends, and how this led to his friendship with Danny Serafin, Chicago's founding drummer.
Well, it was pretty straightforward, really. Leonid and I were working together in studio at a time when he was thinking about his initial project. As a result, I was the first person invited to join the band. But to be honest, it's all been a bit of a dream. I mean, here you have Russian musicians playing cult American rock music. Not only that, but we're playing the stuff to American people in Los Angeles. And to cap it all, Chicago's founding drummer, Danny Serafin, is joining us on stage. Unbelievable. Honestly, you couldn't make it up.
Danny, how do you feel to play with our band, Leonid and Friends?
Oh, it's a great honor, and it's a lot of fun because they're playing the music that I helped create, and they play it with such integrity and heart that I'm very flattered and honored. So I have a great time. It's a lot of fun. Plus, they're becoming my friends. They are my friends, so it makes it even better.
Time and time again, I see
The precision with which Leonid and Friends match their studio recordings live on stage is no more apparent than in this cover of the Spencer Davis Group's I'm a Man. Starting as it does with Vorobyev's deep-pocketed picked bass and Igor's Elvin Jones-like drumming, Vlad Cincillo, not to be outdone, chimes in with a fiery Hammond organ part which recalls the original Steve Winwood arrangement. While guitarist Sergei Kashirin's contributions cannot be underestimated, his volume pedal work and sustained guitar lines are almost eclipsed by Vasily Akimov's growling lead vocal. Chicago's original take on this track may not have seemed an obvious choice for a drum feature, but Igor Javad-Zade's sensational, tight, jazz-tinged drumming, both in studio and live on stage, blend perfectly with the frantic rhythmical percussion workout from the somewhat redundant horn players.
I mean, this group they are right on target as far as how they're supposed to sound. And you watch it and your mouth just hangs open because these guys get it. They get the spirit, they get the enthusiasm, they get the love. They respect the music that came before them, and they are, doing a great service to try to bring it back to life. The concept of integrating horns into rock bands back in the late 60s was certainly successful for many bands, including, of course, Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Earth, Wind and Fire. Frontline integration with defined arrangements was the key, rather than simply adding punctuated horn stabs as James Brown did, as if his brass players were part of the rhythm section.
You know, James did great things. Hit me, diddle-it. And the horns go diddle-it, diddle-it. Oh, yeah, good guy, diddle-it. But this was going to be where the horns were an integral part.
When contemplating putting his horn section together, Leonid Vorobyev wasted no time in calling up 3 talented musicians who had been on his radar.
Andrei Zil, Oleg Kudryavtsev, and Maxim Likachev stem from three very distant cities across Russia and Belarus. And yet, despite this, they had little hesitation in accepting Leonid's invitation to audition for Leonid and Friends in Moscow. Trumpeter Andrei Zil was born in Minsk, but he now lives in Moscow. A multi-winning instrumentalist in many international jazz competitions, Andrei joined Leonid and Friends both in the recording studio and live on stage in 2017. As a jazz trumpeter and arranger, Andrei's founder and leader of his own big Jazzil band, which prides itself in bringing feel-good jazz to its audiences. Andrei's talents have led him to work with numerous Russian popular music artists, not to mention the big bands of Igor Budman, Anatoly Kroll, and George Garanyan. With a particular appreciation for rhythm and music, Andrei is also an accomplished percussionist. But by his own admission, the trumpet is simply more fun. Known for his onstage antics, saxophonist Oleg Kudryavtsev is perhaps the most animated of the Leonid and Friends horn section. Oleg is from Severodvinsk in northern Russia. A graduate of the Moscow Academy of Music, he began playing in various groups, performing a variety of musical styles. He never gravitated toward a single genre, insisting, as he does, that I have no preference. I love pop, funk, soul, jazz, indie, electronic. You name it, I'll play it. Oleg has, for several years, performed with the popular Moscow rock band Bravo, a band which was established in 1983, a year before Oleg was born. Trombonist Maxim Likachev was born and raised in Moscow. His love for music began as a student of the Moscow State Academy of Music, where he majored in trombone. While focusing on a future career in classical music, Likachev's plans changed overnight when he was invited to join a rock band. During this time, he discovered the early Chicago albums and immediately developed a love for the jazz rock genre. Following his graduation from the academy, Likachev was quick to secure considerable session work. He also recorded and played live with many of Russia's top bands. He is seen here with one such band, the name of which, Nogus Velo, literally translates as cramp in the leg. The band is still popular in Moscow, and its music is usually associated with humor, parody, and almost childlike simple melodies. A far cry from the complexities of Leonid and Friends material. Keyboardist and backing vocalist Vlad Sanchilo studied at the celebrated Ufa Institute of Arts. Just as Leonid Vorobyev did, Vlad graduated as a choir master, but it's as a keyboardist that he has considerable experience, working with many top Russian and international performers. He's seen here with Diana Polanova and the band M-Face. Vlad's talent is much in demand from U.S. jazz musicians, such as singer-songwriter Phil Perry and jazz saxophonists Dave Koz and Eric Marienthal, all of whom waste no time calling on him when they're visiting from the USA to perform in Russia.
Valentine's Day.
Holy crap, Batman, have you seen some of these videos? They do just a mind-boggling version of the title track from Hot Streets.
Robert Lamb's piece, Hot Streets, was originally produced by Phil Ramone, and, at a time when Chicago was embracing disco in 1978, could be described as a wistful look back to their groundbreaking jazz rock style from their early days. An underrated and complex piece, the odd meters and syncopation are tackled with effortless but calculated precision. In appealing to today's younger audiences, it would appear that some artists and recording companies anticipating a fast commercial return resort to producing somewhat manufactured material, rather than crafted with any real educated musical originality. So when choosing further suitable material for Leonid and Friends' repertoire, Leonid Vorobyev never fought shy of looking beyond Chicago's back catalog. In addition to Blood, Sweat and Tears' hit Spinning Wheel, Leonid has successfully charted the arrangement of not one, but two songs from Earth, Wind and Fire, who themselves invited lyricist Allie Willis to help write one of them, but not, as she recalls, without some differences of opinion.
Well, September was my very first hit. It was an unbelievable thing to have as your first hit because there was no group cooler than Earth, Wind and Fire. It was my favorite group on the planet. But they needed one song to go on Greatest Hits Volume #1. Anyway, I got this call. I went in the next day. They had already started on the intro to September, which is the hookiest thing on the planet. It's a very, very simple song. I was a journalism major, so I wanted the song to be a little less song lyric-y. Maurice really taught me the most important lesson I ever got, which was never let the lyric get in the way of the groove. And I was especially bothered by the hook in the chorus that starts Body-Ya, say, do you remember? Body-Ya, dancing in September. To me, all those lines were too trite. So I was kind of arguing for a whole new approach. And finally, at the very final recording session, I was literally on my knees, clutching his thigh, going, you have to, you know, this is a hit song. What does Badia mean? And he essentially said, who the f cares? And it was the best lesson I ever learned, because yeah, what would have sounded better than that? Very elated to this minute that I lost that fight.
A global army of devoted Leonid and Friends fans, many of them now retirees, have been able to shake off any disillusionment with today's artists, having fallen in love with their heroes' note-perfect reincarnations of their favorite music from the 60s and 70s. At the same time, Leonid and Friends have promoted their underlying ethos and created a platform that brings together people from all corners of the world.
I first discovered Leonid Friends about 5 years ago.
Leonid and Friends are true ambassadors of peace with their music. I love each and every one with all my heart and soul.
This is the best tribute band I have ever seen in my life.
Because they're executing the music so flawlessly.
Es una familia. Es Leonid and Friends. No solamente es friends, es family.
They've actually become my friends, my family, my tribe.
Leonid og venner, de er simpelthen altid. Det er bare mit yndlingsband.
What she just said was that this band is just the best and she can't stop listening to it.
The musicianship of this band is as good as it gets.
My workouts go much better listening to my friends.
They are the musical doctors for my soul.
Thank you for making our day a special day every day. You make me smile.
I would love for them to come to New Zealand. I would so go to their show if they came to New Zealand.
These guys sound as good as they do in the recording studio. They sound just as good live. Yeah.
Every single day of my life.
The success of Leonid and Friends also shows how the internet has opened up cultural pathways. So much so that the sheer number of worldwide friendships that have evolved through the love for this music cannot even begin to be calculated. This shared love for music seemingly crosses borders, dissolving as it does any perceived hatred and antagonism in its wake. Music is indeed a universal language, which in itself can unite people, regardless of race, religion, or political leanings, all over the world.
Optimistic, but the way that things are going, no, I never ever think of it at all. Don't you ever worry when you see what's going down? Well, try to run my business, that is no business at all. When it's time to function as a feeling human being, will your bachelor of arts help you get by?
It was nice.